Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. And this time, we're going to tackle beauty. Like, what even is beauty?
It's a big one.
Yeah, it's a big one. And, its history and how it ties into spirituality and where it fits, in our world today. I mean, those are all things that you've been asking about lately. And speaking of, you sent in this article from the Spiritual Seek that really gets into all this. And I have to say, one thing that just leaped out at me from this is that we're living in this world where everybody's obsessed with glamour. But on the other hand, you look around and there's decay everywhere. It's kind of weird when you think about it.
Yeah, it's definitely a paradox. And the article does a really nice job of sort of bringing that tension out. But I think before we get too into the modern stuff, we should step back for a second and look at how, our understanding of beauty has changed through time.
All right, let's do it. So the article kicks off by taking us way back to the ancients, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
For a lot of ancient cultures, beauty wasn't just like a visual thing. It was really tied in with their spirituality and how they understood the universe. Like, think about the Egyptians, their art and architecture. They designed all that to kind of reflect the order and harmony of the universe. Like the pyramids with all those precise geometric proportions, they weren't just tombs. They were like gateways to the heavens.
See, and it was like a bridge between the earthly and the divine.
Exactly. And it wasn't just the Egyptians either. The ancient Greeks, they also had this idea of beauty as a divine reflection. But they kind of took it a step further with this concept of hyperuranium.
Yeah, that one really kind of messed with my head a little bit.
I know, it's a bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah.
Imagine like the most perfect version of something, like a rose. Not like a specific rose you could touch, but just the ideal form of a rose existing just as an idea.
Okay.
That's what hyperuranium is. It's like this realm of perfect forms, including like the perfect form of beauty.
So it's like a blueprint for beauty that exists outside of the world.
Yeah. And for the Greeks, everything we see in the physical world is just like an imperfect copy of those perfect forms. Like, think about Greek sculpture, all those statues. They weren't meant to be like realistic depictions of people. They were like attempts to capture that ideal human form, the essence of beauty that existed in hyperuranium.
Wow, that's really fascinating. So beauty wasn't just about what looked nice. It was about connecting to like this higher realm of perfection. I can see how that would have a huge impact on their whole culture. But what about when we move into like the Renaissance period? Did that connection to the divine just disappear?
It definitely changed, but I wouldn't say it completely vanished. The Renaissance was all about humanism, celebrating human potential and achievement. And you see that reflected in their art. Think about Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man.
Okay.
It's this beautiful illustration of the proportions of the human body. But it's also a symbol of human reason and our place in the cosmos,
So it was still about finding some kind of balance between the human and the divine.
Exactly. They didn't reject the spiritual. They just integrated it into a more human-centric worldview. Beauty became a reflection of both the divine spark within us and also just the incredible capabilities of the human mind and spirit.
It's like they were saying, hey, humans are pretty awesome too, but then we get to the Enlightenment and things seem to get a lot more rational.
Right. Yeah, the Enlightenment was all about reason and logic and empirical observation. And that included their understanding of beauty. Instead of relying on spiritual or metaphysical explanations, philosophers like Immanuel Kant tried to define beauty in more objective terms.
So instead of saying like beauty is a gift from God, they were looking for like a formula for beauty?
Kinda, yeah. He believed that beauty was universal, something that all rational beings could appreciate. He even went so far as to say that appreciating beauty was a sign of good moral character.
Really?
Yeah. He believed that appreciating beauty was an act of reason, and that people who could appreciate beauty were also more likely to act morally.
That's a really interesting idea. But it also seems a bit, rigid. Like, does that mean that if you don't like a certain kind of art, you're less moral or something? I mean, beauty can be so subjective, can't it?
Yeah, that's where things get complicated. And it's a debate that still goes on today, that balance between objective and subjective experiences of beauty. But even Kant, with all his emphasis on reason, he couldn't completely escape the metaphysical. He talked about how appreciating beauty could lead to this experience of the sublime.
Okay.
This feeling of awe and wonder that connects us to something beyond the material world.
So even in the age of reason, people were still yearning for something bigger, something transcendent. It's like that desire for connection is just built into us.
Totally. And that yearning gets even stronger as we move into the Romantic era.
Ah, the Romantics, always so dramatic.
Exactly. They were all about emotion and intuition and this deep connection to nature. They saw beauty as this pathway to the transcendent, like a way to experience the divine through art, poetry, and the natural world.
So it's like they were swinging the pendulum back from reason to emotion, saying, hey, feelings matter too.
Exactly. Think about poets like Wordsworth who found spiritual inspiration in the beauty of the Lake District, or Caspar David Friedrich's paintings, those dramatic landscapes that evoke a sense of awe and wonder.
You know, when you talk about experiencing the divine through nature, it makes me think of those times when you're out hiking and you come across this breathtaking view and you just feel this sense of peace and connectedness wash over you. It's almost like a spiritual experience.
Absolutely.
It's like tapping into something ancient and primal, something beyond words. But then things get a little more complicated as we get into the modern era, right? I mean, the article talks about this rise of the cult of ugliness, which seems like the opposite of everything we've been talking about.
Right. It definitely gets more complex. The 20th century brought a lot of upheaval,
Yeah.
world wars, technological advancements, shifting social norms, and all that had a huge impact on how we view beauty.
So how did that play out in the art world?
Well, artists started to challenge all those traditional ideas of beauty. Instead of trying to create harmony and perfection, they embraced the unconventional, the abstract, even the grotesque. Think about Picasso's Cubist paintings.
Oh, yeah.
They're fragmented and distorted, and definitely not beautiful in the classical sense, but they're still incredibly powerful and expressive.
So it was like a rebellion against those old ideals.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
It was about pushing boundaries,
Yeah.
questioning assumptions, and exploring new ways of seeing and representing the world.
Like they were saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and we're going to redefine what that means.
Right. And even though there was this rejection of traditional aesthetics, those deeper questions about beauty's meaning and its connection to something bigger than ourselves, they didn't go away. They just became even more complex.
So we went from seeing beauty as this divine reflection to saying, hey, beauty is whatever we decide it is. But even with all that freedom and experimentation, we're still wrestling with those big questions, like what is beauty, what does it mean, and where do we find it in a world that's always changing?
Exactly. And those are the questions that the article really digs into when it starts to explore this modern paradox of decay and glamour.
Okay, so that's where things start to get really interesting. But before we jump into that, why don't we take a quick pause and see if you have any thoughts or questions so far? This has been quite a journey through the history of beauty.
Yeah, it has.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back.
It's amazing how even with all these different ways of looking at beauty, that basic question, what is beauty, keeps coming back. And like you said before, the article brings up this weird paradox in modern society. We're obsessed with glamour, but we're also surrounded by decay.
It's true. It's like we're always seeing these pictures of perfect bodies and faces, all airbrushed and filtered, but then you go outside and you see rundown buildings and trash everywhere, and just like a general lack of beauty in our everyday surroundings. It's kind of strange.
It is. And the article says that it's not just a coincidence. It argues that this focus on these fleeting beauty standards that the fashion industry pushes on us and that social media makes even worse has actually led to a disposable culture.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's like we're always chasing the next trend, the next must-have thing. And we never really stop to appreciate the beauty that's already around us. And as soon as something's not trendy anymore, it's thrown away, forgotten, left to rot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this constant need for approval from others can be really damaging. Psychologically, it creates this feeling of never being good enough. Like you always have to be striving for some impossible ideal. Have you ever felt that pressure to fit into a certain beauty standard?
Definitely, especially with social media. It's like everyone's showing off their perfect lives and perfect bodies. It's easy to compare yourself and feel like you're not good enough. And the article talks about the bad things that come from focusing so much on outward appearances, like objectification and valuing looks over substance.
Right. It's like we've forgotten that real beauty is about more than just what's on the surface.
Totally. And that's why I really connected with the article's focus on inner beauty. It says that true beauty comes from within. From our character, our values, our ability to connect with others on a deeper level.
I love how the article compares extroverted and introverted beauty. It's a good reminder that what you see isn't always what you get. Someone can be really attractive but have a mean or selfish personality, and someone else might not fit traditional beauty standards, but they just radiate warmth and kindness. It really challenges us to look deeper.
It's like that saying, beauty is only skin deep, but ugly goes clear to the bone. It reminds us that how we act and how we treat others is ultimately more important than how we look.
Exactly. And the article connects this back to that ancient Greek idea of beauty being connected to truth. It says that our true essence, when it's pure, is inherently beautiful. It's like inner beauty and truth are two parts of the same thing.
So it's not just about having a beautiful soul in some vague way. It's about being true to ourselves, living in line with our values, and letting that inner light shine.
Exactly. And the article takes this idea even further. It says that searching for beauty is actually an introspective journey, a path to self-discovery. It's about looking inside yourself, exploring your own depths, and finding the beauty that's hidden there.
This idea of looking for beauty as a way to discover yourself is so fascinating.
Hmm.
But I'm curious, the article seems to focus mostly on the good things about beauty. But can't beauty be dangerous too? Even destructive? I mean, history is full of examples of how beauty standards have been used to manipulate and control people.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You're right, the article doesn't pretend that beauty doesn't have a dark side. It talks about how chasing after outer beauty can lead to unhealthy obsessions, eating disorders, and a distorted sense of self-worth. And, on a bigger scale, beauty standards have been used to justify discrimination and prejudice, favoring some races, body types, and features over others.
So beauty can be this really powerful force that can be used for good or bad. It can inspire us and lift us up, but it can also be used as a weapon to control and manipulate.
And that's why it's so important to be thoughtful and critical when it comes to beauty. We need to question those standards that society tells us are beautiful and ask ourselves, who benefits from these standards? And who is left out or hurt by them?
So it's not about just accepting whatever is considered beautiful. It's about being conscious and choosing what kind of beauty we want to cultivate and celebrate.
Exactly. And the article's focus on inner beauty gives us a really helpful way to navigate this tricky area. It encourages us to look beyond those shallow standards and focus on developing qualities like kindness, compassion, integrity, and authenticity.
It's like we need to shift our focus from what looks good to what feels good, what aligns with our values and makes us feel truly beautiful from the inside out.
And when we start to prioritize inner beauty, it has a ripple effect on the world around us. We become more empathetic, more compassionate, more understanding.
And maybe that can help to balance out some of the decay we see in the world. It's like the article is saying that maybe the graffiti, the lack of respect for art, the obsession with fleeting trends, maybe those are all symptoms of a deeper societal problem, a disconnection from our true selves.
That's a really sharp observation. And it makes you wonder, if beauty and truth are so connected, then maybe the decay we see around us is a reflection of a struggle with authenticity.
That's a scary thought, but also hopeful in a way. It suggests that by embracing our own truth and searching for beauty in all its forms, we can start to heal that decay and create a more beautiful and authentic world.
Exactly. And I think that's a beautiful message to take with us as we keep exploring these ideas.
This deep dive has been so insightful. We've gone from ancient civilizations to the complexities of the modern world, and we've discovered so much about what beauty is, what its challenges are, and how it can transform us.
And we talked about how cultivating beauty can help us discover ourselves, grow spiritually, and even change society.
I think the article leaves us with a really important question to think about. If beauty and truth are so closely linked, could the ugliness we see around us actually be a sign that society is struggling with being true to itself?
That's a deep thought.
Yeah.
It makes you think that embracing our own truth and looking for beauty in all its different forms might be the way to fix that brokenness.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the world of beauty. We encourage you to try out those introspective exercises the article mentions and keep looking for beauty in your own way.
Remember, beauty is a journey, not a destination. Keep exploring, keep searching, and keep letting your light shine.
You know, it's one thing to just talk about beauty like it's some abstract idea, but the article actually gives us some practical things we can do to actually experience beauty more in our daily lives.
Yeah, it encourages us to really engage with beauty in all its forms. Spending time in nature, immersing ourselves in art and music, even contemplating inspiring ideas.
It's like it's telling us, don't just sit around thinking about beauty. Go out and live it.
Exactly. And it stresses that beauty isn't something that's only for special occasions or far-off places. It's all around us, even in the everyday things we usually take for granted.
You know, I was reading this book the other day about the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, which is all about finding beauty in imperfection and impermanence and the natural cycles of growth and decay.
It's fascinating. It reminds me of how the article talks about finding beauty in unexpected places, like the way the sunlight shines through leaves, or the sound of a child laughing.
Those little moments can be so powerful,
Mm-hmm.
you know? They can really change your perspective and remind you that there's beauty in the world even when things are tough.
It's like training your mind to focus on the good things, the things that lift you up and inspire you.
This makes me think of that Rumi quote. Everything in the universe is within you. Ask all from yourself. It's like the beauty we see outside ourselves is just a reflection of the beauty we have inside.
That's beautiful. And it brings us back to that idea that seeking beauty is a journey of self-discovery. It's about connecting with your own inner beauty and letting it shine out.
So it's not just about passively appreciating the beauty we come across, it's about actually creating beauty within ourselves.
Exactly. And when we do that, we make the world a more beautiful place. It's like a ripple effect. The more beauty we bring into our own lives, the more it spreads to others and creates a more harmonious and joyful experience for everyone.
But the article doesn't just talk about aesthetic beauty, it also talks about the beauty of ideas, of seeking truth, of expanding our understanding of the world.
Yeah, it emphasizes how intellectual pursuits can be just as beautiful and inspiring as art or nature.
It reminds me of how I feel after I read a really thought-provoking book or have a deep conversation that challenges my way of thinking.
Those moments of intellectual and emotional growth can be so enriching. They remind us that beauty exists on so many different levels.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes. We've explored beauty throughout history, its spiritual connections, its modern complexities, and even its potential downsides.
And we've talked about how cultivating beauty can be a path to self-discovery, spiritual growth, and even societal transformation.
I think the article ultimately leaves us with a really important question to consider. If beauty and truth are so intertwined, could the decay we see in our world be a reflection of a societal struggle with authenticity?
That's a profound question. It makes you wonder if embracing our own truth and seeking out beauty in all its forms is the key to healing that decay.
Well, this has been an incredible journey. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into beauty. We encourage you to try out those introspective exercises the article mentions and to keep searching for beauty in your own unique way.
Remember, beauty is a journey, not a destination. So keep exploring, keep searching, and keep letting your light shine.